Recording is on. Welcome to DXD Governance Discussion for Wednesday, May 18th, 1500 UTC. Starting first with the proposal roundup. I'm going to share my screen first so we don't have to stare at Chris's game face the whole time. So here's the agenda for today. Looking at the proposal roundup. It actually does not say proposal roundup here, but it usually does. But looking first at Mainnet, we actually have an active Mainnet, a couple active proposals on Mainnet right now. First is a transfer of funds to GC Base 500K. This is a proposal that would transfer 500,000 SUSD that would be converted half into DAI and half into USDC and bridged over to the Gnosis Chain base. This will pass. This is set to pass, I think, on Monday or Tuesday of next week, and will require some execution. And I want to talk about that in just a minute. Actually, we can talk about that now. Dave, do you want to kind of maybe put some context on this proposal and maybe explain why SUSD is being sent?
Sure. So, well, one of the main reasons is we've kind of taken a look at the current stable coins we hold on Mainnet, and of course, DAI USDC tend to be the ones most requested for contributor payments. And I guess overall, there's also somewhat of a re-evaluation going on around stable coins in the whole crypto market after the Luna UST happening. And so, I think if we generally look at the stable coins we hold, SUSD it is collateralized by SNX, but it's also somewhat of a riskier coin, for example, compared to the other ones like USDC or DAI. And we need stables anyway to fund the Gnosis Chain base, and so I think it just makes sense to perhaps for the next couple of ones either use SUSD or USDT and kind of bridge that over. So even if we were to go with DAI, we also hold some USDC on Gnosis Chain, so we end up converting it anyway. So either way we go, there is some conversion taking place, and I think it just makes sense to go use up perhaps the SUSD first, then perhaps USDT next, and we have roughly 2.1 million of both of them, so that should keep the Gnosis Chain base well funded until end of the year at least. And people still submit proposals on Mainnet as well, so we also don't want to deplete our DAI and USDC reserves on Mainnet, as those are also used. And that's pretty much it. Not sure if you wanted to chat about the lack of current funds in Gnosis Chain as well, if that's coming up later.
I mean, that's fun too. What we can chat about that. Or I guess that is more Gnosis Chain based, but maybe a little preview here.
DXDAO is broke on Gnosis Chain is the very brief overview. But I guess generally just there have been a lot of proposals on Gnosis Chain due to the ETH Amsterdam stipends going through, due to a lot of worker proposals going through. So we're currently running low on both XDAI and USDC on Gnosis Chain. As we'll see later, there is a proposal on XDAI to unwrap 65,000 wrapped XDAI. So that will be unwrapped. And then there's also this transfer to Gnosis base, which is due to pass on Monday. So Monday we'll have our whole base replenished, so to speak. And for those who actually have proposals live or that will pass in between now and Monday, you actually most likely won't be able to redeem your proposal, as the funds won't be there to pay out the proposal. But the way it actually works is that the proposal will still be claimable on Monday or at any point in time where the funds are replenished. So you don't need to resubmit your proposal or anything like that. You'll most likely just have to wait a day or two before you're actually able to claim the funds. And I think it's the first time it actually happens with so many proposals queued up, but that's mostly due to just the number of proposals we've had over the past week or two, as well as the contributor stipend for Amsterdam. So yeah, nothing to be worried about. And Monday we should be back in shape on Gnosis Chain.
I do think most of the proposals that are currently outstanding should be able to pay out once this unwrap 65K to WXDI to die goes through, which is, I think, in like tomorrow evening.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So tomorrow evening, everyone should be able to. That will, and then this mainnet proposal is to fund kind of operations going forward, and so there'll be replenished in there. But I believe there's the 65K should cover that initial one. There also has been, as people have noticed, and there was like some limits on USDC withdrawals from Gnosis Chain kind of over the past week or two. It was a week ago there. Just a kind of another reminder of thinking about liquidity across chain.
I was just wondering about the SUSD. I'm kind of like not super intimate with how Synthetics works, but it's a collateralized stablecoin, right? With SNX being the collateral. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so in a way, it's like it bears some resemblance to Luna and UST, which I guess is part of the thinking for why we should be offboarding it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But and it has very good liquidity on curves, so we shouldn't have any issue getting our DAI and USDC at a very good rate for now. So yeah, but that's pretty much the main reasoning behind it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess like they've been around longer. They haven't collapsed. That's probably mostly due because they have fairly conservative collateralization ratios, even though they're using SNX to be the collateral.
Yeah, and there also could be, it's a little bit different when it's like a collateral back versus like the mint burn model. And they also have circuit breakers kind of implemented, I think, in terms of being able to redeem. But
like they have liquidation point like in the collateral ratios.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So when you're liquidating, like that's like it kind of is a slightly different way of the death spiral. It still is like a death spiral in like certain ways, but it has, I guess, like different properties. But I think broadly speaking, they have been more conservative in their approach. Like, I mean, SUSD is, I think it's $115 million market cap, the total market cap for the stablecoin. Which is like very small. SNX is not that big, so it's only, I think, like a $700 million market cap. But they've I think been more conservative. But in terms of I think to DXDAO, it's really like that means DXDAO is like right now like 1% of all SUSD, and I think that's a kind of unnecessary risk, really, and not really.
Yeah, that's maybe a bit high for something that.
And
we want a liquid market to be able to use, right? Yeah,
right. It is impressive, as Dave said, that they still we still have good liquidity on it. Like you can get 1-to-1 right now for 500K on Curve. But I guess also take a step back and think like, well, why does the Treasury have SUSD? And I believe it was the first three. Maybe it was one of the first three stable coins, because at the time DXDAO was acquiring stable coins, you had USDC, which, can, of course, all the centralization concern, that's, dollars locked in a bank there. And then DAI, of course, which that was part of the diversification strategy. But DAI at that point, I think, was like a majority backed by USDC. And so SUSD was at the time really the only, you could call it like the most decentralized stable coin, because it's backed by SNX and not some custodied asset like USDC or DAI, even though they're, the SNX team is like pretty centralized. So that's really like the justification for the original like allocation. But since that time, LUSD has launched, right, which is a pure ETH as collateral stable coin. Of course, RAI is launched, and DXDAO has like $3 million of that. So I think there were just like other options that DXDAO is getting in terms of reaching its decentralized goals in terms of the stablecoins in its treasury. But at the time when SUSD was acquired, I think it made sense in terms of the landscape then.
Yeah. I think it was like either they hadn't launched or it was still early days for RAI or LUSD. So, and from a diversification, it makes sense to have more, right? Like to have some variety, because even USDC could like fail or like, decide to start censoring people or something, right? So, yeah. And then like on the collateralization model, yeah, I guess like even if SNX were to fall, like if you have a healthy liquidation system, it should be able to unwind relatively gracefully, right, without like hurting the value of SUSD too badly. Versus like the Luna UST model, you literally had this sort of like accelerating downfall like potential where as people wanted to get out of UST, they were like minting Luna and then dumping Luna, right? Whereas, I mean, I guess that you have a potentially similar effect though with the SNX price, right? If it's falling, people have to liquidate, sell their SNX, then it falls more. But
yeah, it's like a different property. That's what I'm saying. I don't know how you like model it out, but it would go in a different way, but still the end result.
But still the type of collateral is sort of the same model, right? It's like the endogenous, this is Robert from Liquidity described it as like the endogenous collateral model, which is like, it's using the system's own token as the collateral, right? So like it was like Luna for UST, it's SNX for SUSD. And this is like maybe most easily compared to something like MakerDAO, which is using exogenous collateral, right? Like, so it's, or Liquidity or RAI, where they're using exogenous collateral, right? Like not their own native token. It's not FLX or LQTY being the collateral, it's ETH, right? Which is a more liquid, more robust, more stable like collateral and unlikely to like death spiral.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, of course, there is a possibility that even with that collateral, like Maker DAI could death spiral because ETH is death spiraling. Like this is kind of what you saw a little bit with Black Thursday, where like markets in free fall, and that is, but that's another completely separate type of risk there.
Yeah, it's definitely like there is still a risk, but I think it's less likely to be a death spiral because the amount of ETH collateralizing DAI is a relatively small percentage of the outstanding like supply of ETH, right? Like,
right.
I mean, but yeah.
That's like all. But if you look at this, is like if you had all leverage on chain, right? In terms of like how you could have these. I mean, you see this in like Bitcoin and ETH compared to like every other asset, right? This is why it drops like 10, 15% when it drops a little bit, because you have these liquidation cascades where like it goes down a little bit and then people get liquidated and then you need to sell more collateral and then it ends up going like down more. So I think just like part of it is built into like crypto because people are using so much leverage, but you can see this now where like market participants now know that Bitcoin and ETH like will death spiral. So you have different investors coming in and filling like those bids when you see, seed markets go down a little bit, liquidations happen, and then you have like a different set of investor that is now coming in to see that because like that they know that that's what the Bitcoin and ETH like market structure happens when prices move.
Yeah, there's a lot of like funds basically like chomping at the bit to like eat up the bids on the way down if there's like a margin cascade. Yeah. So it's
and you need a robust system. Like that's what this all is, right? It's like how do you build a robust system, right? And like that's why ETH is collateral. Like Ethereum is like a pretty effing robust asset, right? And so there's a risk in these things always, but like how do you build that robust system? Anyway, we are drifting further and further away from the the items of the day here at DXDAO. Any other thoughts on kind of the stablecoin discussion, this proposal to transfer 500K in SUSD? Cool. Yeah, and then next up, there are 3 different rep syncs going on. So there is a rep sync for Venki, which I believe is for 1.8% rep. And then there is a 0.15% rep for Skymine Labs that those are now boosted. And then there is a pending boosting proposal from Medusha for a mainnet rep sync. I believe this is for the last 6 months from Medusha, and I think it's almost 9 or 10 months from Vinky. Sky also just posted a proposal in the forum, the importance of tidy rep, that I think is kind of relevant to this discussion. So maybe Sky, if you can like kick off the discussion, and then we can chat about any of these specific rep sync proposals.
Sure. Yeah, for the last year or more, we've been doing most of our governance on Gnosis Chain, and we've been using Mainnet rep as the reference because we thought that that was the smart thing to do, because that's where, you know, the rep started, and that's where the main treasury is and things like that. But what we were doing is we also have a goal to increase decentralization of DXDAO, and one of the ways to do that is to increase the distribution of rep. And so clearly we have many contributors, we have many community members through Rep Boost and Discord Rep Boost, and then a few other ways probably where people can earn reputation. And that has basically all been happening on Gnosis Chain, but we have been using Mainnet rep as the reference to determine how much rep you can get on Gnosis Chain. And there, you know, this hasn't been looked at in a while, but there are some massive discrepancies on like what the current state of rep actually should be. And what that causes is because the Mainnet rep base is artificially low by quite a significant amount. Just looking like roughly at the rep tracking sheet, we have we currently have 1.769 million rep on Mainnet, which has included maybe a handful of rep syncs over the last year, but not that many. And if you actually factored in all of the rep that contributors and other community members have earned in percentage terms, and applied that to an increasing base on Mainnet instead of just on Gnosis Chain, Mainnet rep should be currently more like 2.1 million rep. And clearly that's a large discrepancy, almost 20% discrepancy from what it should be. And so the question is, why does that matter? And if you have to just go back up, the reason that matters is because there's a handful of main ways that this is affecting people. And so the core contributors that are earning, regular contributors that are earning, 0.166% each month, they've been earning that off of this like lower incorrect rep base. And so the people that this is probably affecting the most would be new contributors that don't currently have rep, that are trying to get kind of up the curve to earn some voice in DXDAO, and they've been working every month, and they've actually been getting less than what contributors in the past have been getting for the same, what was supposed to be the same like standard amount. And we use 0.166% for a reason. We don't use a certain number of rep, we use a percentage, because we want a contributor who earned a year ago it worked for a full month to be to get a equal a similar say to a contributor that earns this month in rep. And so you kind of want to you have to use percentages for that, which is why we use this inflation percentage. But we've been using a totally incorrect base for that rep. And so and then the other factor it would person that could affect is if we're capping Mainnet rep at 4%. And so people that have more than 4% Mainnet rep have never been able to earn more rep on Mainnet or on Gnosis Chain. And so those workers that reach that cap also are not have to stop earning rep on that as well. But we've been calculating the 4% cap off of a fully incorrect mainnet rep, and so there's a few different factors that it's actually affecting, and it makes quite a big difference because you can see this massive discrepancy. And one question would be like, does it matter that much? Because if it's affecting everyone, like if it's affecting everyone currently equally, kind of everyone's just earning less rep together. But this also causes the factor of it's not doing what the DAO has set out to do, and it's also the people it's helping the most is it's helping the oldest rep holders who have not contributed to DXDAO in a very long time. So those rep holders that really, should theoretically be losing more governance power over time because of the inflation of rep. And so, that it's like this mismatch of rep on mainnet, this incorrect rep on mainnet is really like protecting the oldest holders of rep who are not contributing to DXDAO. And so like that also doesn't make that much sense. And so there's like 4 factors that are all being affected by this mismatch of rep or incorrectness of mainnet rep. And so if we could go back, we probably would have made a much bigger effort to make sure that rep on mainnet stayed matched where it should actually be, and instead of just keeping everything on Gnosis Chain, we would have liked to do way more regular rep syncs, and so we didn't do that. And so we have a decision. We can try to do some calculations to like over time calculate what mainnet rep people should have earned and re-up like those numbers to what they probably should be, or we could start to correct this going forward from now. Let's say it's in a the thing is, it's not just like a 20% difference. Like there's a compounding effect. So for like someone who's been contributing for like the last maybe 9 months, like that person probably should have a decent amount of more rep on mainnet and on Gnosis Chain. And so actually Gnosis Chain distribution and mainnet rep would be a lot more distributed than it is today. So that's the overall summary. The proposed solution would be like, okay, so we've been talking about like required rep syncs, and obviously there's a post that it's a link to a post that Chris had maybe a year ago, like, or what was it, May 20? It was over a year ago, that one, May 2021, which is like talking about this specific issue. The community hasn't really done these rep syncs since that point, even though it was supposed to be happening. And so we can either the proposed solutions are we start doing these, and requiring rep syncs it's a little hard to do anything that's required in the decentralized world. We can incentivize rep syncs better to cause like people to do this more often and more regularly. Theoretically, other people or other a squad in the team in the DAO could actually do these without the permission of a person, right? But DXDAO has not usually done stuff like that, where it just does something without like speaking to or having the backing of the person that's receiving that rep or that money, right? We don't normally do that, so that's a little weird. But so there's a few options, and we should talk about it and then decide if we want to like try to get things up to speed of where they should be, and then we should put a process in place to make this more accurate going forward. So that's like kind of the summary.
Thanks, Sky. Yeah, I think like this is sort of a product of, well, one, that we are out of sync, but also the percentage approach, right? Because the percentage approach is always relative to whatever the number is. So therefore is all of a sudden like chronologically dependent, right? Like if you and 10 other people sync before I sync, now my number is different than if I had gone first, right? And so you sort of have that, and that's like where you can get into this, like, you know, an aggregate. This can actually make a pretty big difference based on like when you're syncing. So like if Venki is the first one to get up to date, but then like 10 other contributors now do it, right? Like there's going to be, you know, a whole other 10% of like inflation on the rep, and you know, Venki's number is basically 10% lower than maybe it should have been, right? Or like something, you know, just rough numbers. So I guess like what I'm asking myself here and now asking you all is like, well, why are we doing it with percentages, right? And I sort of suspect it's partly because the Alchemy UI from DAOstack works that way. And then that sort of just became the custom, right? Because you could also do this with just like an expected number of rep that gets periodically adjusted as rep inflates, right? And we can kind of project based on the number of contributors and like, you know, what the rep issuance will be going forward. So, yeah. So I don't know. I would maybe think that
Wait, John, the Alchemy, I don't remember. I don't use Alchemy like many people here, but I don't remember actually how the percentage works for rep, because in DXvote, you actually have to put in a number of rep. I thought on Alchemy, you have to put in a number of rep as well, right?
You also put a number in an Alchemy, but it displays in the UI, like in the proposal, as a percentage.
Okay, but you still have to enter a number. So it's just displaying it that way. But we've always been using numbers for rep because I would think the reason you use percentages is because it's easier because it's an inflating supply, it's easier to talk about like a quantity related to the overall supply when you talk about percentages. Otherwise, you'd be talking about like 2,108 rep versus 2,209.
Yeah, it's the more meaningful. Like it basically tells you what actual voting power you have relative to the whole, right? So it's like the more meaningful way to talk about it is just to say percentage.
Yeah, and your point about like Venki and who's doing it first and who's doing it next, that is a valid point. It's okay. It seems like on average it would.
Wait, can I jump in there? Because that should not affect people's mainnet rep syncs. That should only affect their future contributor proposals that are using the size of the mainnet rep. When you're doing a mainnet rep sync, that's only coming from rep that has already been earned from proposals that you've already gotten approved with specific amounts.
But you base them off of a sometime the mainnet rep at some point in time. So if you
right, but that's already happened for anyone doing a rep sync like going forward. I'm just saying like the effect is on submitting your future contributor proposal and waiting to do that to getting the maximum one, not on submitting the actual.
So my example is wrong then, like with people like getting up to date. Yeah. But it's still, but like there are still other examples. Yeah. But like more like what Sky was talking about,
the broader
aggregate.
Yeah. But even like, because there is a scenario where people that do it first use a lower base than people that do it later. Like in general, that is a phenomenon. But if you have a little bit of volatility along the way, on average, that should kind of average out. The problem is these massive discrepancies of time that cause cliffs in rep rather than just like a little bit of volatility here and there. Yeah. Augusto.
Okay. First of all, rep inflation is good. The only way where you get rep inflation is because rep is being generated. When rep is being generated, it's because someone is committing to DXDAO and someone is doing something useful for DXDAO. So if rep increases, we all should be happy, right? because something good is happening for the DAO, and the DAO is giving reputation to a member or someone, right? So if I see rep increases, I should be happy. If I see my rep being diminished in percentage, then I should be happy because more the organization is growing and we have more members and more reputation being distributed. What I think we are doing wrong is we are thinking on percentage and saying, hey, my rep is being diminished, so now I'm worth less for the DAO. It's not how it works. If you have reputation, you are already you are already an important member. So the only thing that we should try to care about is to have a standardized way of issuing rep, which I think we started doing in percentages. And again, this is wrong. Rep is a token where you mint by number, by an absolute amount. So maybe we can start thinking and saying, okay, if I want to sync my reputation between XI and Mainnet, which chain has more? I have 5,000 in Mainnet and 7,000 in XI. Okay, then I sync Mainnet to XI, and that's it. I increase only 2,000 of reputation, or reputation amount, not in percentage. So this is what I just want to say. Rep inflation, I think, is good because the only way that increases is because the DAO is getting more members and more people is coming in.
Yeah, Augusto, everything you're saying is correct, but you're missing the one most important thing is that we've been using mainnet rep as the reference, and we haven't been putting rep onto mainnet. So the
this is
underrepresented by 20%.
Yeah. And this is another issue where another thing that I wanted to talk about is how hard it is to maintain mainnet. For example, like synchronize with XI. I mean, for each of us creating a sync proposal, no. That's not bueno. That's not practical. And that's not efficient. So the way to do it will be to use something like we are going to be using in the future, like a wallet scheme, where you can synchronize all the reputation on different members in just one proposal. So this is a big constraint that we had on the operations level, where we are using all the legacy smart contracts that, again, they work, the contribution reward, the multi-call, all the things works, but we have a lot of constraints of things that we can do. We need to synchronize a lot of reputation amounts in one proposal, and we cannot do it. We will be able to do it in the future. I think that is our constraint, because, again, having 4 proposals from four different members, synchronizing their reputation, and they spend, I don't know, like 5 or 10 minutes, or the energy that I put there, I could have do it myself with my reputation and the 4 of you guys, and that's it. So that is how I think it should work in the future.
Yeah, in the future, it can be better by design with the governance system. But it is timely now because I was doing some stuff on chain last night with 1315 Gwei. And I think the main reason that this sort of became a backlog was not out of like laziness. It was because it was like costing a small car to pass proposals on mainnet for a little bit there. And that's changed, right? So I think now, especially if we're like batching multiple periods, like 6 months, a year at a time or something like that, I don't see any reason why people shouldn't be able to go and sync their rep at this point, with like 20 Gwei gas prices. They get reimbursed. It's not,
Yeah, but we cannot depend on gas prices, John. I mean, this has to be a smooth operation. Again, it makes no sense that we have 4 proposals.
I agree with you in the future, but for the now, here and now, we have something like 20 people maybe at most that are out of sync. Like, I think this is a good call to action to go and make your proposal on mainnet.
So, and then to Augusto's solution, though, we've been talking about that solution for many, many months, but John's always also mentioned and stressed the massive risk of that. Like, if you can mint a shitload of rep in one wallet scheme, in one proposal, there's that's one of the riskiest things that the DAO can face. If that gets into the if that is like incorrectly done, like that could very highly disturb what proper rep should be, right? So like it's powerful, it's efficient, but it's also really risky, right?
Yeah, we don't want to rush into like new models or do anything recklessly, right? Like any kind of change, I think, even in like process, there should be done very carefully. And yeah. And we're in the, for those who don't know, we're currently in the process of auditing the guild smart contracts. And Sigma Prime is doing that. They are one of the best in the industry. They also are the creators of Lighthouse client for ETH2. And they have an interesting approach where they actually are building the tests like themselves as they audit the thing. So yeah, I mean, for those, I think a lot of people, you know, just use crypto, whatever, you're kind of aware that hacks happen and stuff, and maybe you haven't had the opportunity to like really like kind of dig in and like see what is involved in like shipping a system. But you know, I think this is going to be a great report because they create great reports and they're very detailed. And so, you know, in a matter of weeks, I think we should be able to share that with everybody. And I think that'll be a good opportunity for everyone to kind of get a taste of what I'm looking at quite frequently. And I think that may calibrate some of your thinking around like what we're handling and what we're dealing with. Yeah, and this is just guilds. This is just guilds.
Yeah. Just guilds, and well, right now they are other team is working on the auditing the DXgov contracts, right?
Yeah, that's Omega team doing that.
Oh, Omega team already. I mean, they're just waiting on us to. Or did you already?
Yeah,
you guys just sent that
yeah.
out?
They're
So,
currently
the audit is basically done, but they're like, accepting the changes.
Adding on what Scott said, we added a check on the wallet schemes where you can set a maximum amount of reputation to be changed by proposal. So if that is like 5%, that should be good enough in order to be safe and to do rep syncs once a month with one proposal.
Yeah, we can, if we're doing it regularly once every month, then what should the maximum be? It would be like 1-2%. It's not going to be a huge amount of rep. I'm not saying we should not be careful with it, just that it is still feasible. It's not like we're doing tens of percentage changes each time.
Yeah, like so that would be good if we had a built-in constraint, but we don't actually have that right on Mainnet now.
No, not currently. No, I think we'd need to wait for wallet schemes on Mainnet before.
The largest amount so far was in April 22 with obviously that's when we have the most contributors so far, I think. And that was just over 3% of rep. So yeah, higher than 2, but less than 5. So 5 at 5%.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of doubled with how we do proposals currently because people do 2 at a time, their old one plus their new one. So it'd be 3 every 2 months.
No, well, this is just for the month. So this is just 1.66 is for people. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and just thinking about next steps here, I think there's a bit more discussion on how we're doing this, obviously long term and even the medium term, and how we can kind of encourage people. But I think at the minimum, this is a call to arms for anyone to submit a RepSync proposal. I will say you can also do your next worker proposal through Mainnet. You can request the stablecoins directly from the Mainnet base in your RepSync proposal themselves. You may also even have like some ETH expenses that you may have incurred. You could also even request that all in one proposal. And that's exactly what I was going to say, Ross. You could argue for, depending on your off-ramp method, this could be a cheaper way actually to get your funds, especially because all of your transactions through DXDAO governance are reimbursed through that way. So I would encourage you to do that. And also, John was strolling down Ethereum last night with their team Gwei.
Felt like 2019, man.
There is something, exhilarating about Ethereum mainnet. I don't know if anyone has shot a gun before, a shotgun before, but it's like the power you feel with just like, your finger. It's kind of like that with Ethereum. So good excuse for everyone to get their mainnet rep sync in. Okay.
Can you tell Chris is moving down south again?
Yeah. Shotgun, man. I'm telling you, it's a good feeling. Yeah, so that was actually just technically mainnet for the proposal roundup. Been a while since mainnet took so long of that. On to Gnosis Chain quickly. We talked several about these, but you can see there's a bunch of worker proposals here from Skymine Labs. This is actually Stipend reimbursement. D Labs, Dave, Zet with the Amsterdam Stipend, Leonardo Bertiati, who also just made a nice call to arms in the Swapper channel about voting for that. Another Skymine Labs, Melanie, Adam, Wayne, who's been doing some great work on DX Voice. I believe this is Wayne's first worker proposal, so great to see that up there. And then Carl B. And Medusha from the DXgov team, and also Diogo. And then there are 3 buyback proposals currently in the queue. A couple, I guess, 2 things to note on the buyback proposals. One is erroneously labeled 197 in the title, but that's actually 198. And then you'll notice the decline in the amount of WETH spent on these. That's from the decline of the DXD trade volume, which, as we talked about last week, has gone down a lot over the past month. Broadly in line with the market as a whole. But so this is, I believe, an average buy of like $23,000 per buy, which lowers the amount of ETH that's been on the buyback. So that will actually, I think, have a positive effect in terms of prolonging the amount of time before the buyback reserve is depleted. And then the other proposals on Gnosis Chain, I guess jumping around a little bit, we mentioned this unwrapped 65K WX DAI to DAI. So there's I think 95,000 WX DAI in the base, but the proposals above are requesting X DAI. So this proposal would simply unwrap the WX DAI. I think that will pass tomorrow evening, late US time. And so anyone with the proposal that has not been able to redeem the DAI will be able to get so after that proposal passes. And then there is the cross-chain member balance of supply XDXDAO with 35,000 XGEM for continued governance operations from Skymine Labs, who has executed the deposit and is asking for the reimbursement there. This was for a previous proposal that was slightly faulty, but no harm done. And then, the 2 proposals may be open for discussion here are, one, looking at the stake 255 GNO signal proposal. So this was part of StakeWise's effort to move some of the treasury into yielding assets. So there was a corresponding signal proposal on mainnet to stake 2,000 ETH into StakeWise, and then this is the Gnosis Chain one that would the 255 GNO, and then presumably if these proposals pass, then there will be kind of like an execution plan on how we get that ETH and GNO into staking. Interestingly, the GNO, we probably will be able to stake that or get staked GNO through the multi-call scheme directly through governance. So there's that proposal. And then there is the DXColumbia contributors stipend. Melanie, maybe if you want to, are you on the call here? We can.
Yeah. I'm on the call. So we have been talking about this for a few weeks now, but finally the proposal is on chain. But this DXColumbia contributor stipend outlines the costs that will be covered for DevCon and the DX retreat that's happening this coming October. So the stipend outlines the daily stipend, the transportation actually from your country of origin to Bogota, transportation to the retreat in Cartagena from Bogota, accommodations while at DevCon, just any testing, and then the potential DevCon ticket. And then if there are any visa costs that are incurred before traveling as well. I did make some slight adjustments to the on-chain proposal. Originally, we had made the transportation to Cartagena $100 US, but upon further investigation from Dave, we realized that that flight or that transportation might be a little bit more expensive. So we did up the cost for that transportation on the on-chain proposal. A big reason that we put this contributor stipend up so early, I know DevCon and our retreat isn't until October, is because we, wanted to make sure contributors are reimbursed for these costs. I know it's really expensive to kind of front the cost for conferences ahead of time. So we wanted to just be able to make this open for any contributor to claim the funds right away. If you do choose to attend, if you have any questions, feel free to ask me. If you have any questions about, what to book, where to book, you can reach out. We also have a channel that everybody's, who's interested can join. And, we're having discussions there as well. So reach out to me if you're interested in participating in DevCon and, of course, our DX retreat. Yeah.
And a friendly reminder that specific locations are intentionally left off, right? Like specific hotels, etc., are specifically intentionally left off of public communication. That's just generally good operational security. As somebody in crypto, extra important to be discreet.
Yeah.
Just imagine Dave screaming OPSEC and trying to be discreet. Awesome. The last item, I don't know if we really if we have much time to chat about it, but I just wanted to call to attention a conversation that was going on, I think, on Monday's biz dev call about becoming DXDAO becoming a key member of the DAOist Dawn. And so, Sky, I guess another proposal from you, or I guess, sorry, another forum post from you here. Maybe you can speak to this.
Yeah, so we talked about it briefly, but this is the DAO that's being formed with all people and organizations that have been contributing to the DAOist and their events, and then it also is a opportunity to support and lean into this initiative even further. This doc outlines everything. There's a handful of different links on there which give you a lot more information. One question that was raised on Monday was kind of about the core team that helped build this from the start, and almost on a volunteer basis. Part of the and how those what their commitment was going to be, and how the funds were going to be used. And so a portion of the total funds raised in this is actually going, it says on their core team, but it's actually core team plus all of the new contributors that have started contributing. So it's like a greater core team. I added those additional notes. Felipe kind of answered that. It's almost, the team is almost twice as big now. So that core team funding is being used for investing in all and paying all of the people that are contributing. And there's a whole bunch of people that are going full-time or 50% of their work capacity to dive into this initiative, which is like really cool to hear, because the 3 events that happened so far were like, they were doing it all on the side. And so if you have a team focusing on this, like, there's unlimited possibilities for new events and ideas and things that come out of it. There's this idea of the Meta Hub in Lisbon, and that could actually expand to other regions as well. and then they do, and then I also asked, like, if the core team, how much of the future of this will come from the DAO, how much will come from the core team, or the core workers, do they have their own ideas? And their answer was that there's a few different tracks of tech, art, culture, and governance, and their team has a whole bunch of different ideas that they can and will propose to the DAO for the DAO deciding. But they're like, if the DAO, it's not dependent on the DAO to start coming up with their own ideas from the start. It will be a mesh of the team that's already been doing this plus all of the new people involved in the DAO. And there's like 6 big sponsorship opportunities, support opportunities. I think one's being done by Prime DAO, one's being done by Giveth. Those are all, I think, locked in. There's a handful of them. And so the ministry support ones, I think there's 18 of them. That would be one of the ones that DXDAO has the opportunity to join on. And so, if you look through the docs, that's the best way to get like a good picture of what the goals of it are and all the things that would happen with it. But they will continue to do awesome events in the future. And if DXDAO is an even larger part of it, we can help define that and participate and have early and better access to those events. And we can even help form those or combine those potentially with events that DXDAO wants to do as well. And so immediately, like they're planning to do an event in Columbia at some point around the DevCon week. They may do other events as well, but it's really going to be up to the DAO at this point. But there is a solid commitment from a whole group of people that have been involved in this and will continue to be involved in it. So I guess what we need is, once everyone dives into all this information, any questions, discussions, support, negatives, put in the forum, open public discussion. Other, community members may have questions about this, but it's all, fully open. And then there's some immediacy because these ministry spots are limited at this price, and it would be better for DXDAO to make a decision sooner than later, I think. And if they have public calls, you can join. I guess if they're public, you can join their calls as well.
Awesome.
Just a quick question. I don't know whether Sky would be able to answer it. Dave kind of raised it last time we chatted about it. At one point, the DAOists were referring to Dawn as a decentralized political organization.
It depends where that is. Sometimes I think certain words are used in new meanings in the DAOist world. I don't believe that political would mean the traditional political, but we can ask that to the team.
No, if you read through this information a little bit,
Nice.
you would see that they basically are planning on being almost like the ambassadors for DAOs against other corporations and this type of thing, to basically be a voice in the DAO space, to advocate for DAOs and this type of thing. And I think that's what they mean by that, the way they've written it in their paperwork here.
Good point.
And Sky, that ambassador role of theirs, there's 5 slots of those, and there's 1 open. I see by the paperwork that they wrote here, it's almost as if they invited us to be part of this ministry. Did they invite us like that, or they just
They invited us to be one of the first
ministry ones, right?
spots. If we wanted to, we could see if that one ambassador spot is still open, but yeah, same reason we've been invited and have been a big participant in their events is, you know, they want DXDAO's perspective to be involved, especially if this is representing DAOs in front of, you know, governmental organizations and things too. Like they want the perspective of DXDAO and the participation, because maybe they recognize some of the unique parts of DXDAO.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah. Anything else on DAOist Dawn or any other items people want to highlight before we depart? Okay. Well, thanks everyone for joining, and have a great rest of the day.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, everyone.
Cheers, everyone. Bye bye.
Thanks.
Bye-bye. Take care.